policy framework update.
Phil, I'm happy to second it if you want.
You happy to second it? Who's moving?
I'll move it if you want. So I'm not on any of the committees, so I'm neutral.
Ina mana, ina rau, I rau rangatira mā, tēnā koutou katoa. Firstly, I'd like to express my thanks to Mark Rocket and Francis Sullivan for taking their time to come and speak to you this morning. Certainly, we as staff in the Civic and International Relations team appreciate their collaborative spirit with respect to international outreach for the city, and in turn, we are genuine in our desire to try and assist them. Councillors, the report before you today is twofold. Firstly, is reporting back to you on progress related to the International Relations Policy Framework. From here on in, I'll refer to that as the IRPF, including key measures we have prepared to monitor the outcomes of the partnerships and the approach to fostering connections with South Pacific nations to provide support for resilience and development. Second is to seek approval for the Mayor and a small number of elected members commensurate with the appropriate visit within the financial authority to travel in support of significant sister city anniversaries and the IRPF. The report details 4 key measures we have prepared to monitor the outcomes of the partnerships identified in the IRPF. Firstly, to deliver targeted city visits to each partnership destination through to the end of the triennium. This is consistent with the IRPF's vision, priorities and principles. A visit to Adelaide has already happened last year, and it is intended for visits to happen to the Western United States in July, Korea and Japan in September, and China in the second half of next year. Additionally, we have tentatively scheduled a visit to Brisbane in October of this year to attend the Asia Pacific Cities Summit. This measure is assessed as being green and on track. Secondly, is to deliver ongoing work plans in each citywide partnership destination through to the end of the triennium. Some detail of each of these plans is contained in the paper, but suffice to say that we are maintaining a pipeline of activity in each IRPF destination alongside our existing civic and international relations work. This is also assessed as green and on track. Thirdly is growing the International Relations City Stakeholders Group as a platform for sharing citywide international activity, noting that we have increased the size of this group by 3 in the past 12 months. This is also assessed as being green and on track. And then finally, it is, as you heard from Francis, collaborating with LGNZ and later Taitura in providing technical expertise to the South Pacific region. This measure details what we are doing to support the resilience and development of nations in the South Pacific, and we are excited to establish a win-win partnership that will further the goals of that program, as well as increase and coordinate our activity as a council in the South Pacific. This one is assessed as amber and requiring further development. The COVID-19 pandemic has seen a restriction on travel that has prevented face-to-face engagement with our sister cities and other international partners for an extended period. Now, with the reopening of the borders, it's imperative for Christchurch to prioritise travel in order to honour its international relationships and to grow its status as a leading New Zealand city that is internationally relevant. In an international context, the Mayor and councillors are diplomatic assets for the city at large. Deployment can facilitate access to partners and to decision makers that may otherwise be difficult for city stakeholders to achieve in isolation, and indeed you heard Mark Rocket refer to that in his deputation. We have identified a number of visits for the Mayor, supported by appropriate councillors, to undertake between now and the end of the triennium. Where possible, we have linked these visits to other engagements in order to minimise time away whilst maximising the efficiency. 2021 saw the 40th anniversary of our sister city relationship with Seattle. 2023 is the first opportunity we have to have a face-to-face commemoration of that relationship. In February, we hosted a delegation from Seattle to our city, and we are now well into the planning to send a return delegation to Seattle. While we are there, we are planning to conduct a business delegation to visit Seattle, Denver, and California. An opportunity has presented itself for the Mayor to visit North Asia at the end of September and early October of this year. This visit will be anchored on attendance at the World Cities Summit being held in Seoul. The intention would be to then include a visit to Incheon and Songpa-gu whilst the Mayor was in Seoul, and then travel on to Japan. The visit to Japan would coincide with the Kurashiki Sister City Committee's Citizens Delegation that will be in Kurashiki at that time to commemorate the 50th anniversary of that relationship. And that is ahead of an inbound delegation that we will receive from Kurashiki to celebrate the relationship in November. While in Japan, it's also proposed that the Mayor will go and visit the city of Toyama. This is a city where the majority of the young Japanese victims who were tragically killed in the CTV collapse hailed from, and the intention would be for the Mayor to go and visit the bereaved families up there to remind them that we as a city have not forgotten them or their loved ones who, in many cases, remain here in Christchurch. Then Q3 2024 is the time that we have identified as appropriate to conduct a visit to China. The focus will be on Guangdong province, that is the cities of Guangzhou and Shenzhen, where the focus will be on business. And then moving on to visits to Wuhan and Gansu province, where the focus will be on education and on the sister city dimension to the relationship. Other destinations in China will be investigated in due course. The indicative costs for the travel are in part 7 of the report, noting that this is the cost in there is for the Mayor and one councillor. Following subsequent consideration, Schedule 1 provides the figures for 3 elected members to travel at council expense for each visit, noting that the figure for China is actually 5.5k more than what is required, so I just draw your attention to that. Preference will be given to those councillors who serve on the sister city committees and who are available to support the Mayor at the time of the visit. Now, in summary, the International Relations Policy Framework has been developed to be in close alignment with the Council's own strategic framework. For instance, the Council's prosperous economy community outcome is reflected in the strategy's priority of pursuing well-being through a prosperous economy. It also embodies the principle of actively collaborating and cooperating with other local, regional, and national organisations, which is aligned to the strategic priority of championing Christchurch and collaborating to build our role as a leading New Zealand city. On the one hand, though the costs with the international travel as set out in the briefing in the paper are comparatively modest, the decision by the Mayor and councillors to undertake council-funded travel at a time of fiscal prudence could be viewed as counterproductive. On the other hand, since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, city travel has been limited to a level that is lower than at any other time in recent memory. This means that the cost related to international travel, and indeed to international relations more broadly, over the same period have been extremely low. International engagement is worth a lot to the city in economic terms. To give a couple of examples, prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, Antarctic-related activities made an annual contribution of $235 million to the Canterbury economy. Further, visitor spend in Christchurch and the wider South Island from a daily wide-body aircraft was estimated at $157 million annually. Our international engagement has significantly contributed to each of these activities. It is therefore justifiable and indeed important for the Council to make a modest level of investment in a strategic international travel schedule that supports such connections. Should Council be unwilling to commit to an international travel schedule, then it would face a reputational risk. The risk is twofold: that there is both a likely perception from international partners that Christchurch is uncommitted to its international relationships, and the perception with our own city ecosystem that Council is unwilling to champion Christchurch internationally and undertake collaborative leadership as set out as a responsibility in the IRPF. Further, there is also a broader strategic risk to Christchurch of missing out on opportunities that could be acquired through visitation or lose important connections due to the actions of other cities. This is especially the case in a post-COVID environment where cities around the world are reinvigorating their appetite for international connection and partnerships. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Now, I have Tim's happy to move it and Kelly's happy to second it, and Mark has got a question.
Thank you. Duncan, just picking up on the LGNZ deputation, do we as a city have any sister city relationships with any Pacific nations?
No, we don't.
And is that something that we'd perhaps look to investigate?
Our recommendation on what we have seen and in our discussions with LGNZ on that Pacific TA program would be no, because that would then restrict us to one area where we assess that we could provide good to a lot of areas if we partner with LGNZ in that Pacific TA program.
Very good. And another point I want to pick up on as well, the Antarctic program was mentioned, and do you see this paper today as being vital to continuing and securing that relationship?
Certainly the visits that we have planned do play a role in maintaining our Antarctic partnerships with, in particular, the US and Korea. So whilst in Korea, that visit to Incheon, the primary purpose of that would be to visit the Korea Polar Research Institute, which is headquartered there, and we know that mayoral engagement at that level is extremely valuable. When we're in the United States, we will see what we can do with regards to visiting McCord Air Force Base, which is where the heavy jets of the US Air Force are based that support the Antarctic program. Thanks.
Yanni.
Yeah. Thank you for the work that you've been doing. I just wanted to chat on the Pacific Islands work. Are we going to get like a formal report back on what the options are based on the previous resolution where we've asked for that advice? Because I guess I hear what you're saying around the sister city relationship, but I do think it's important that we have some mechanism of engaging with the Pacific communities within Christchurch to also see, what best we could do. Obviously being mindful that they've played a huge role in supporting us when we've had our disasters and our tragedies that we've faced over the past decade. So it would be really nice to just work with those communities locally to find out, what approach they would also like us to consider. And so is there a chance for us to get a report back on what the various options are, recognising that the LGNZ stuff is already happening?
There was no intention to bring a separate report on that. The information that is contained in this report was assessed by us as fulfilling that resolution. And after careful assessment of a variety of options, which included quite a lot of consultation with stakeholders around the city, it was assessed that joining the Pacific TA was the most efficient way for the city to be able to engage with the South Pacific to fulfill that resolution, especially since it's at no cost. It's at no direct cost to council. It's at indirect cost in time, but not in money.
So can I move an additional resolution that we do seek a report back to formalise the direction? I just think as councillors, certainly as the councillor who was keen to put this into our framework, that we should actually have a report on the various options of what we do and what resource may be required to support it.
Okay, and you're happy to second that, Mark? Okay, right.
Happy if staff can just take that direction from
a
the
North thing, Martin?
discussion rather than a formal resolution. I mean, we've already got a resolution to provide that advice. It's
Noting
really
matter.
could
Yeah,
just be a
okay.
note or an action from the.
Thank you, Yannick, that's good. So, we've got the noting matter, we've finished with questions. Is there any debate? Timothy?
Yeah, thank you. Look, I just think these links are so important. You've just heard with NASA coming over. This is an organisation with a $40 billion budget to allow our companies to connect and then through their professionalism build those over time is absolutely essential. And I know through personal experience when I worked here, through the Sister Cities Seattle connection, when we were doing the Summer Rock, the true big concerts, the guy that discovered Nirvana and his record label, the first to sign them up, came here and we personally met with him and started those links. And you can imagine, if we're talking economic, music is money, but more importantly, if you're talking culture, these two things are amazing. And sadly, at this table, it kind of fell over, but that's another story. But the links were made and they were so important. And I guess if we're talking culture, one of the things that's certainly on many people's minds is with looking at, say, North America or England or Australia, why are there so few road cones and yet you come here and there are so many? So that would be a really good kind of question to ask as our councillors and our staff go and visit and on their subsequent reports on their returns. So thank you, I'm fully in support.
Thank you very much. Any other debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Duncan and Jack.